This is the story of how I celebrated my birthday in London. This was my first time in London. I walked from my university all the way to the station, Hythe. So by the time I could get my camera ready, and we're like, oh my god, this is so gorgeous, I need to make a video. The train would have already whizzed past. The moment I get out of the station, there's like this massive icy blast of wind that just hit me. And I'm like, oh my god, I am so underdressed for this one. It saved me from dying a hypothermic death. Hello and welcome to Dr. Ruchika Sharma Unfiltered. I am Dr. Ruchika Sharma. I'm a historian by training. I do have a few other credentials listed in the description box, none of which are relevant for this channel. I do have another channel where I talk about Indian history, so in case you're interested in that, that's also linked in the description box. This is a channel where I talk about my travels to 35 cities in the UK. I already have made 2 introductory episodes which tell you why was I in the UK, what were my living arrangements like, my financial arrangements, this, that and the other. So in case you want to check that out, you can check those out. In the last episode, I ended by telling you that I was going to go and celebrate my birthday in London. And therefore that's exactly what I ended up doing. This is the story of how I celebrated my birthday in London. This was my first time in London. So I woke up, I was severely jet lagged, but I woke up pretty early because I had to catch the train. Before that, I also wanted to catch the breakfast. I had this very nice, lovely, generous English breakfast. If you've checked out any of the previous episodes, you'd know that food for us on the campus in the university was completely free. I mean, we had a £30 allowance every day. There was pork sausage, there was bacon, there was baked beans, there was egg, and there was this very nice warm cup of hot chocolate. I mean, who doesn't love hot chocolate? I love hot chocolate, and I had plenty of it in the UK. Firstly, because the UK weather really makes hot chocolate worth it. It really hits the spot because it's a cold country, right? I mean, even in summers, it's pretty cold. And my university, so many cafes in my university would do a very good hot chocolate. I am a mocha girly, I love my coffee, but in the UK, hot chocolate was my go-to. This is what I wore to sort of go frolic around in London for the first time. I walked from my university all the way to the station, Hythe. And Hythe is an interesting station. It is one of those Fatak stations. So an Indian would be able to relate what a Fatak station is, right? So when the train is passing, the Fatak is closed and you cannot pass. And then when the train's passed, the Fatak's open and you can pass. So it was like that. I took a video. Obviously, I was very, I was like a 5-year-old. Oh, trains, So I took a video of this other train. That's not my train. So I had to go from Hythe to London Liverpool station, right? And it's like an hour and a half, maybe 1 hour, 15-minute journey, right? And that entire journey, most of it takes you through the countryside. So Essex is basically a county. It's a very green county, and it's a coastal county. And I wasn't ready for it. I mean, obviously, this was my first ride from Hythe to London Liverpool. So I wasn't ready with my camera. I didn't know I was going to see such gorgeous views, right? So I mean, I did try and take some photos, as you could see in these videos, but they are, of course, because the train was whizzing past. So by the time I could get my camera ready, and we're like, oh my god, this is so gorgeous, I need to make a video, the train would have already whizzed past. I was very enthralled by the view. I got out, I took a few pictures of the station. The station itself is very busy. It's a huge station. It of course has these, intercity trains, but it also has London Underground, right? The tube. I didn't have to take the tube today, but I will be plenty of times later, so we'll talk about that. I got down at the London Liverpool station, took a few photos. I got out of the station, and the moment I get out of the station, there's like this massive icy blast of wind that just hit me. And I'm like, oh my god, I am so underdressed for this one. Like, my dress gave up. I was like, because, the cold is one thing, and I'm sort of accustomed to it being pretty cold. I've lived in Delhi all my life, right? So the cold doesn't bother me, but it's the icy wind which is constant actually, and it's crazy. In the UK, that really kills it, right? And it's always cold, always. Even when the sun is out, the wind is always cold. So, and then, this was the moment when the sun was not out. I will have to now grin and bear. So I'm walking, and I walk a few steps from London Liverpool station. So the plan of the day was I was going to meet my friend. He's going to come from Heidelberg to keep me company for my birthday. I was to meet my friend somewhere close to the London Bridge. And that's like a good 2 to 3 mile walk, right? And I was happy to do it. I did a 2 mile walk already. So from my university to the Heights station, it was already a 2 mile walk. So there was a lot of walking. And I love walking, so I, didn't mind. Plus the weather in the UK is perfect for walking. It's cold. So I was also hoping that this long walk will warm me up eventually. But I had a lot of time to kill. So I was going to meet him in the afternoon, and I had like 3-4 hours to kill. So I could do a lot in the city, and I did do a lot actually. So I walked a couple of steps, and I stumbled upon this church, which had a very interesting name, St. Botolph's without Bishopsgate. I was like, wow, that's a very interesting name. Although the church looked very modern built, as most churches in UK are. So I went inside anyway, but I also went inside because I needed the warmth. It was freezing outside. And I really needed. So this is a good thing about, I think, most Western countries which are cold. The insides are always heated up, right? So whether it's a church, whether it's a cafe, whether it's your house, they're all heated, right? So that really gives you the respite that you need. And it gave me the respite that I needed. So I stepped inside the church. And to my amazement, it was a gorgeous church with a lot of history. The church's first building was apparently built in the 12th century. That's how old it was. Although the side of the church is claimed to have Christian worship since the Roman times. But you will see such claims about many church sites. Not just in the UK, but I think world over. Like you have these Prachin mandirs in India, right? Where there is always this idea that these are very ancient and Prachin or whatever. So then the church survived the Great Fire of London in 1666. This was a very interesting period in London's history. There have been many fires, but this was the Great Fire of 1666. I would love to tell you more about it. It's an interesting history, but this episode is already going to be, pretty long. So I'm just going to, quickly give a overview. It started in a bakery, I think, in central London, and then it raged for like three days, right? And a lot of London was damaged because of it. Many buildings succumbed to the fire, but this one survived. It was repaired later because it was later that it suffered damages owing to time, of course. 1720s to be specific. And its claim to fame is that the famous English poet John Keats, the person who wrote A Thing of Beauty is a Joy Forever, Endymion, also ode to a Nightingale, I think. And I remember that distinctly being part of my English syllabus in school. I don't know about you guys. And this very beautiful line which said, "Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird." And also, so Keats was baptized here, right? And then Mary Wollstonecraft, just I think a little before Keats or maybe after Keats, but these are the 1700s we're talking about. Wollstonecraft, if you don't know, very bad. If you don't know her and you're a woman, even worse. She wrote The Vindication of Women's Rights, which is one of the earliest, or maybe early-ish, feminist piece of writing, fantastic piece of writing. We are all very grateful that Wollstonecraft existed. Anyway, so why is the church called St. Botolph's without Bishopsgate? St. Botolph was a 7th century saint, and he died. And later his body was divided into 3 parts by Danish invaders. What a cheery thought. This happened in the 10th century. And then from these places, his body parts, his relics were brought to London. And they were brought inside the city from its 4 gates. So there's Aldgate, Aldersgate, Billingsgate and Bishopsgate. The church at Billingsgate was destroyed in the Great Fire of 1666, right? But the other 3 survived. So there is a church at Aldgate, up St. Botolph's at Aldgate, at Aldersgate, and of course at Bishopsgate. So this is the one which says St. Botolph's without Bishopsgate. And this one had a gorgeous stained glass window showing Christ's crucifixion. you have these angels up above blessing him. His followers are underneath. There is a Roman soldier on the horse. And then there's this Bible verse which said, if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me, or something like that. And there is also a memorial for World War I soldiers. Most churches in the UK will have this, by the way. Anyway, so I exited from the church back in the cold. But I think just 10 minutes later, the sun came out, and my God, I was so grateful. I have never been this grateful. I'm brought up in a tropical country. I'm never grateful for the sun. But in the UK, you will become very grateful for the sun. It saved me from dying a hypothermic death. Which is not true. I don't think I would have died of hypothermia either way. That is not the temperature at which you die of hypothermia. I'm just being very dramatic. But anyway, the sun saved me. I was very glad. The rest of the walk became very interesting. I walked to this market. I actually stumbled upon this market called Leadenhall Market. There were a lot of shops. There were a lot of eateries. And then more walk till I arrived at the London Bridge. And then I saw the River Thames. And also sang Fergie's "How Come Every Time You Come Around My London Bridge When I Go Down." If you've not heard the song, terrible music choice you have. Go listen to it. It's a very nice song. And I had to sing that song. Right? If I'm going to London Bridge, why will I not sing London Bridge? It's a ritual. So I sang London Bridge, standing in front of London Bridge, on London Bridge. And then I walked a bit more. And I still had an hour to kill, maybe an hour and a half to kill before I was going to meet my friend. And I stumbled upon this fantastic church, right? Absolutely gorgeous church. My only problem was I didn't know where its entrance was. I didn't even know if it was open, right? The churches are not always open. So this is a church called the Southwark Cathedral. I had no idea at that point in time it was going to be this very historic church. Right? I am just trying to find the entrance. Google Maps just doesn't know where the entrance is, or maybe it was pointing me to the right direction and I just didn't know. And I asked a lot of the people over there as well, where's the entrance to the church? Is it open? Nobody had any idea. Churches are something that not a lot of people visit over there, which is good for me. They were mostly empty because I visited a lot of them and I did a lot of frolicking and took in a lot of the history. I finally figured that it was down the steps, which is also the entrance to the Borough Market. I later realized that. I had no idea at that point in time. And when I, walked into the entrance, it was this grand cathedral actually. I didn't know it was this big. And I went in and it was gorgeous on the inside. And like I told you, it was a very, very, very historical church. Its first known building was 12th century, built by the Norman Knights, and it was dedicated to Mary, of course, Jesus' mother, also known as Saint Mary Overy, which is over the river, which is Thames. And King James I of Scotland was married here, primarily because his wife was the niece of the Cardinal. They were married over here. Also, the poet John Gower lived here in the parish. He's buried here. This is his memorial tomb. And also a stained glass window dedicated to him. That's actually how most of the stained glass windows work in churches, by the way. They're either dedications to people who were either buried in the church or were living there. They were parishioners, right? Or were baptized there. Right? But what's even more interesting is that William Shakespeare, the great playwright, the person who wrote All the World's a Stage, King Lear, Macbeth, Twelfth Night, As You Like It, this, that and the other, right? Of course, you know that guy. He was also a parishioner at this cathedral. So how did he become a parishioner here? So in the 16th century Tudor era, Henry VIII, this horrible king, some of you would know, horrible husband to Catherine of Aragon and Boleyn, this guy, he had acquired this particular church. It became his property and the congregation was renting it out from him. By the time King James of Scotland took over, which is the 17th century, the merchants were sort of tired of renting it from the king, so they bought it, right? There was this group of merchants who were part of the congregation called the bargainers, I think. They acquired the church from King James of Scotland. And then the church served as a stage for artists. So you had Shakespeare and his brother Edmund Shakespeare, both of them lived here. They have a memorial for William and a stained glass window which depicts scenes from, I think, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, and a few others. And then there is, of course, Shakespeare's reclining sculpture, which you can see on your screen. And it was hilarious because someone had put a reed in his hand as a pen. And it really made me chuckle. And then another famous person who's associated with the church is John Howard, the man who founded Harvard University. He was baptized here. There's a stained glass window dedicated to him as well, which says, dedicated to John Howard, who established the university in the 17th century. Then there was Lancelot Andrewes, the bishop, and he was entrusted with the work of writing the famous King James Bible. He's also buried here. His tomb is here. This is his tomb. And most fascinating person who's buried here was this quack doctor. I had no idea about him, called Lionel Lockyer. He was a 17th century quack, fake doctor. And he apparently made these miracle pills with sunbeams in it. And because medicine at that point in time was not developed, many people fell for it. So he died a super rich man with a wealth of 1,900 pounds, which the church said was the equivalent of 250,000 pounds now. Yikes, that's a lot of money. That's just insane amount of money, right? And some of it ensured that he was buried here and he had a tomb here. This is his tomb. And his epitaph is very interesting. Best lines are, his virtues and his pills are so well known that envy can't confine them under stone. His pills were fake, alright? But anyway, very fascinating. And this is what I love about these churches, that they preserve such interesting bits of history, right? I mean, sure, Shakespeare, etc., and John Gower, Lancelot Andrewes, but this quack doctor as well, right? I would have never known that this quack doctor existed. Miracle pills, this, that, and the other, and then how he actually became rich. So it's this very fascinating view into English history. I was very thankful that the church had preserved it. So I had an excellent 1.5 hour at the Southwark Cathedral. I also had the beautiful fortune of listening to the organ. You can listen to it as well. I'll share the video. The stained glass windows here were stunning AF. The main one was this, along with the frontispiece of the apostles. And four of the apostles are also on the stained glass window at the back. Repairs to the church were made throughout 19th, 20th century. But it also has a memorial to those who drowned because a ship called Marchioness was struck at the Southwark Bridge in 1989. I mean, it wasn't really struck. There was like a collision with another ship. And it was a disaster because I think the ship was carrying people who were celebrating somebody's birthday. So it was really sad. So yeah, so you had Gower, this Howard guy, Lancelot Andrewes, Shakespeare, that quack doctor, right? So just so much of English history I learned by just visiting this one church. And this is why I love traveling. You learn so much of history of a particular place by traveling to that place. And also the fact that I did this on foot, right? This is why I travel cities on foot, because you stumble upon such amazing stuff, right? If I was just to take a bus from London Liverpool station and go to London Bridge, I would have missed both of these churches. I finally met my friend. We were supposed to go to a pub, but the pub was closed weirdly that day. But it was good in hindsight because we ended up going to Borough Market, which I would later on realize is one of London's oldest food market, right? Very historic market. Because this was my first day in London, I obviously had to, and I love seafood. Anybody who knows me knows how much I love seafood. So obviously I had to have their speciality, which is fish and chips, like basically batter fried cod and fries, or what they call as chips. It was okay. But what was even better was this anchovies in pesto. Oh, it was chef's kiss. It was absolutely delicious, but also the batter-fried calamari. Oof, I love calamari. I have a lot of it in Delhi as well whenever I can. But this was also absolutely amazing. And then we finished it off with some really nice cider. I love cider, apple cider. And also Guinness, which is again one of my favorites. That is how I ended up celebrating my birthday in London. My friend, by the way, gifted me this lovely bottle of mead, which I will open much later in Scotland. And it was amazing, just really delicious, right? Honey's in it, so what's not to like? It's amazing. Everybody must try mead. It's gorgeous. Then tragedy stuck when I was informed that I was supposed to have my train back to Hythe at 7 p.m. The train was cancelled. And there was like this small moment of panic before which my friend said that, just relax, because you can always take the other train. And I did. So I took the 8:31, I think. And I pulled into Hythe Station. This is me pulling into Hythe Station. You can see the video. At around 9:30, look how well lit the sky is. This was a dystopia, but this was also such a good thing because it just made me feel so safe. I got down at my station at Hythe, walked all the way to my university, again another 2 miles, right? And by the time I got to my university, the sky was still decently lit, right? The sun had gone down completely. So I arrived at the university around 10:15 p.m. into my room, took a bath. I love night baths, it's just bath before bed, readies me for bed. It makes me feel clean, very therapeutic. I'm now in the zone to relax and sleep. So I did that and I immediately fell asleep because, as you can see, this is my picture of me returning on the train journey. I had contacts on for like 10 to 12 hours, which is why my eyes were red. They were, bloodshot. And I was very tired. I had walked so much and I was also very jet lagged still, right? This was my second day. So I just immediately fell asleep. My next destination would be this town called Wivenhoe, which is an old person's town, right? So many retirees come and live here. So I thought that was very interesting. It was very close to my university. So we just, sort of went there. Me and a few other of the fellows, we went there and checked it out, and it was a very interesting town. And I'll speak to you about it in the next episode. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Please like and share if you liked it, and please do subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next episode.